You survived them, but something in you didn't. They left, but their voice stayed. Still curling around your spine when you try to rest. Still choosing your words before you speak. Still staring back through your own eyes in the mirror. And now you're free, but hollow, not healing, not whole, just not you. You're not being dramatic. You're disembodied, because no one talks about what happens after you leave the narcissist, when the cage opens and you realize you forgot how to be a person. This isn't another How to Spot a Narcissist video. This isn't about them anymore. This is about the echo that stayed after the door closed, the confusion that curled into your nervous system and called itself normal. The way you still pause before speaking, like you're waiting to be corrected. You left the abuser, but you didn't leave the programming. This is the part no one warned you about. When safety feels foreign and you look in the mirror and see a face that knows how to survive, but forgot how to live. We're not here to move on. We're here to go back to the moment you vanished just enough to stay. I was 34 when I finally left. Not the first time I packed a bag, not the first time I said, I can't do this anymore, but the first time I didn't go back. The apartment was silent, not peaceful, just emptied. My toothbrush alone in the glass. The closet still smelled like them. A pair of their socks crumpled in the corner like a ghost that never finished haunting me. I stood in the shower that night with my hands shaking, not from fear anymore, but from the absence of it. My body didn't know what to do with calm. I flinched when nothing happened. I kept expecting the door to slam, the voice to rise, the silence to explode, but it never came. And that's when I noticed something worse than their anger. The stillness felt unbearable, because for years I had learned how to orient my entire being around not upsetting them. Who I was, what I felt, how I spoke. It all became a performance for their comfort. When I took them out of the equation, I realized I didn't know how to be without an audience. Even my inner voice had turned against me. It didn't speak in my tone, it mimicked theirs. You're overreacting. You made it up. You're too much. You're impossible to love. I wasn't free. I was finally alone with the script they installed in my head. And worse, it felt like mine. Not because I believed it, but because I didn't have anything else left. There was no real me waiting underneath the trauma. There was just silence and a shape I used to call myself collapsing under the weight of its own emptiness. You think you're healing because you left, because the bruises are gone, because no one's screaming anymore. But trauma doesn't end when the abuser does. It mutates. It hides inside your habits. And the most violent wound? It's not what they did to you. It's what you had to do to stay. You erased yourself, not all at once, piece by piece, until your own nervous system stopped recognizing you as safe. That's the betrayal no one sees. It starts young for most of us. You learned that love was earned by disappearing, by shrinking your truth to avoid eruption, by reading faces like weather forecasts, by becoming whoever they needed just to make it to bedtime without shattering. You didn't just survive the narcissist. You rehearsed for them your whole life. Maybe it was a parent who made you their mirror. Maybe it was a caregiver who called your needs too much. Maybe it was silence, the kind that teaches a child they are only lovable when invisible. So when the narcissist arrived, you already spoke the language. You already knew how to abandon yourself. That's why it didn't feel like abuse at first. It felt familiar. They didn't steal your identity. You handed it over like currency, trading it for scraps of safety, affection, approval. Over time, the performance became permanent. You became their echo, their script, their praise-trained pet. And when you finally walked away, you didn't walk back into yourself. Because the self you left behind, it was buried under years of shape-shifting, of tone-checking, of emotional exile. So now you're left with this fog. Not because you're broken, but because your body is still protecting you from the risk of being real. Because being real once meant being rejected, punished, or ignored. And healing? It doesn't start with forgiveness. It starts with rage. Rage for the years you were a ghost in your own skin. Rage for the self you weren't allowed to be. But rage is terrifying when you spent your life pacifying others. So instead, you stay numb, detached, functional, but floating. You read all the books. You go to therapy. You say, I know it wasn't my fault. But still, you feel like a lie. Because recovery from narcissistic abuse isn't about what happened. It's about what didn't. It's about the mirror that doesn't recognize you because you've never been reflected accurately. Not by them, not by anyone. And now, your nervous system doesn't trust calm. Peace feels suspicious. Softness feels like bait. So you keep sabotaging closeness or chasing people who remind you of the original wound, hoping this time you'll be enough to finally be chosen. But you're not seeking love. You're seeking resolution to a childhood that never ended. And until you name that, you'll keep calling abandonment bad luck. You'll keep calling your collapse growth. You'll keep mistaking numbness for strength. Here's the shift. You were never too much. You were just never met with enough. And now, the work isn't to fix yourself. It's to reclaim what you buried in the name of survival. The tone of your laugh, the truth in your gut, the spine you lost trying to stay soft enough for someone else's fragility. You're not healing to become better. You're healing to become real. Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt like you were meeting a stranger you've been performing as for years? Like your voice belonged to someone else? Like your smile was rehearsed? Like even your healing felt fake? What's the one thing they took that you still haven't gotten back? If this named it, even a little, subscribe and share your story in the comments. Someone out there needs your honesty to feel less alone. Here's the part you never say out loud. You don't just miss them. You miss having someone to explain why you feel like nothing. You miss the structure of their control, the predictability of their disappointment, the sick, twisted safety in being small. Because when you weren't allowed to exist fully, at least you knew who you had to be. Now you walk through life untethered, terrified of being real because you don't know who's watching and who will leave once they see you. Here's the shame you carry like second skin. You feel guilty for wanting peace, but more ashamed for not knowing what to do with it. You think, if you were stronger, this wouldn't still be haunting you. You think maybe you stayed because you were weak. You weren't. You stayed because you were wired for survival, because your love was weaponized, because your boundaries were shattered before you even knew what they were. And the deepest shame? You don't hate them as much as you hate yourself for how much of you they still control. But hear this, you didn't consent to erasure. You adapted to it. You didn't fail to heal. You were never taught how to be whole. There's a grief that doesn't cry. It just lingers in the background of your smile, in the hesitation before joy, in the tension that never fully leaves your shoulders. It's the grief of losing yourself without a funeral, without anyone noticing. You kept showing up. You kept functioning. You even kept laughing. But inside, something was gone. That's what narcissistic abuse takes. Not just your peace, your personhood. You learn to perform instead of feel, to anticipate instead of ask, to please instead of exist. And the cost of that, it's you, the version of you that never got to be, the one who speaks without checking the room, the one who cries without apologizing, the one who walks without armor. She died quietly. No one heard it, not even you, because you were too busy surviving. And now, even with the abuser gone, you carry their voice like a parasite inside your nervous system. You second-guess your joy. You flinch at kindness. You interpret love as danger. And every time you betray your own intuition just to feel safe, that version of you dies again. Not loudly, just incrementally, until all that's left is a highly functional ghost performing strength while starving for truth. This is what happens when survival becomes your personality. And the worst part, the world rewards you for it. They call you resilient, independent, unshakable. But deep down, you know it's not strength, it's absence. You've learned how to be everything except real. What if you never meet the version of you that wasn't built in response to pain? What if the real you, the one untouched by performance, fear, or survival, never gets born because you were too busy being strong? Would you even recognize her if she walked into the room? Would you let her speak if her truth made someone uncomfortable? Would you hold her if she didn't make sense? What if your entire life has been a brilliant adaptation to a lie? And now that the lie is gone, there's nothing left to stand on but the silence where yourself should be. Don't answer yet. Just sit with that. Let it echo. Some part of you knew, didn't it? Even when they smiled. Even when they said they loved you. Even when you told yourself, it's not that bad. Some quiet, exiled part of you whispered, this isn't love. This is disappearing. And now, in the aftermath, you're not rebuilding. You're remembering. Not who you were before them, but who you were never allowed to be. There's no guidebook for that, just this ache and the slow, feral return to your own skin. No bow, no neat ending, just this. You're not overreacting, you're resurfacing, and it's going to hurt. But this time, the pain is yours, which means so is the power. Come back when you're ready. Subscribe if you're tired of surface-level healing. Comment your reflection. Someone needs your honesty to feel less alone. And when you're ready, watch the next one. We're going deeper.